So let's go ahead and do another example to make sure we really know what the x and y intercepts of a line are, what the slope of a line is, and how to graph a line using that information. And so we're given this equation, y minus 3 is equal to 2 times the quantity x plus 1. And we're going to find the x and y intercept, then find the slope of the line, and then graph the line. So let's go ahead and start with the x and y intercepts of our line. And so remember, the x-intercept is going to occur when our line or graph crosses the x-axis. And so we're going to do the graphing part later. But eventually we'll graph our line on this set of axes that I just drew. And remember, if we're crossing the x-axis, then in order to cross the x-axis, you have to have a y-coordinate of 0. So in order to find the x-intercept, our strategy is we're going to set y equal to 0 in our equation and then solve for x. So now let's go ahead and do just that. So we're going to plug y equals 0 into our given equation. That gives us 0 minus 3 is equal to 2 times the quantity x plus 1. And now we have to solve for x. Well, the left-hand side simplifies to negative 3. We can expand the right-hand side to give us 2x plus 2. Now to get x by itself, we want to subtract 2 from each side. That'll give us negative 5 is equal to 2x. And then we can divide both sides by 2 to get x by itself, and x will be equal to negative 5 over 2. And so now we know one point that is on our line, our x-intercept, is going to be the point with an x value or coordinate of negative 5 halves or negative 2.5 and a corresponding y value or y coordinate of 0. So to finish off this first part of this example, we also need to find the y-intercept. And so the y-intercept is where the graph is going to cross the y-axis. And so in order to be on the y-axis, you are forced to have an x-coordinate of 0. So our strategy for finding the y-intercept is going to be very similar to the strategy we used to find the x-intercept. But now we're going to set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So let's go ahead and get that job done. If we set x equal to 0 in our equation, then our equation is going to look something like y minus 3 is equal to 2 times 0 plus 1. Well, 0 plus 1 is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. So we get y minus 3 is equal to 2. We can then add 3 to each side and see that y is equal to 5. So this gives us a second point that our line goes through. The second point is the y-intercept. And we know its x and y coordinates written as an ordered pair are going to have our x coordinate be 0 and our y coordinate be positive 5. So just knowing and graphing these 2 points is all we really need to do to accomplish the third thing in this example of graphing the line. But just for fun, let's go ahead and off to the side find the slope of this line. And we can find the slope because we know the x and y coordinates of 2 points that our line goes through. Remember, one way to write our slope formula is that change in y values divided by that change in x values. So it doesn't matter which point we label as x1, y1 or x2, y2. We just have to be consistent and always use that labeling in our formula. So let's go ahead and call this point the x-intercept x1, y1. And our second point over here, the y-intercept, we will use as x2, y2 in our slope formula. Okay, so then what is y2 minus y1 going to look like? Well, that's going to look like 5 minus 0. That's our numerator, and it represents the change in y. In our denominator, we have to have the change in x, and that's going to look like 0 minus negative 5 halves. Okay, so our slope formula is going to simplify to 5 divided by that double negative is going to turn that into a positive 5 halves. And so now we have a complex fraction. And so we can think of this as 5 divided by 5 halves or 5 over 1 divided by 5 halves. And then the trick to remember when working with or simplifying these complex fractions is instead of dividing by that second fraction, we can always instead multiply by the reciprocal of that second fraction or multiply by the reciprocal of our divisor. So instead of dividing by 5 over 2, we can multiply by 2 over 5. And remember that first 5 we can think of as being over a 1. Those factors of 5 cancel out, and we find that our slope is equal to exactly 2. Or if we really wanted to, we could write that as 2 over 1 to really see what the change in x is corresponding to that change in y of positive 2. All right, so we have found the x-intercept, we found the y-intercept, and we have found the slope of our line. Now let's go ahead and finish this example off by graphing our line. So the quickest and easiest way to graph our line is just to graph these points that were given to us. And so let's go ahead and add some scale to our axes here. It looks like we need to go to about -3 in the x direction. Remember, our x-intercept was the point -5/2, comma 0. -5/2 is equal to -2.5. So our x-intercept will be this point right here on our graph. And the second point, that y-intercept, we found to be 0, +5. 2, 3, 4, 5. And so that point up there along our y-axis is our y-intercept. And now if we draw the straight line through those 2 points, this is the line that is represented by our equation. This is the line with an x-intercept of -5/2, comma 0, a y-intercept of 0, 5, and a slope of +2.